Like, I think Bon Jovi to me was, for the 10, 15 years that I was there, I mean, I thought it was one of the best run tours, and I think a lot of people who did those tours would, say the same thing. It was a core team of people, very well run, very well organized. There wasn't a lot of chaos inside the tour. There was definitely a motivation that everybody made it feel like, it's a family. We're all there for each other, and we're all like putting in this work for the greater good, no matter how hard it was, no matter whether you were staying up overnight or you had to sleep at the venue because, things just had to get done. It never seemed like a job.
Wow.
It just seemed like, this is awesome, right? We're doing this stuff. It's hard work, but everybody's having a good time and we're not taking it too seriously.
That is how you know you're also meant to be out there, as if it just is not feeling like work. Welcome to the Gigs Podcast, live from Lititz. I'm your host, Nikki Sanz, and we are filming on campus in Rock Lititz at the conference. So we get to sit down with the very best in the touring and live event industry. So let's get into it. We got Jesse Sandler on, production manager who's worked for artists like Bon Jovi, Phish, the Eagles, Nickelback, Prince, Steely Dan, and Aerosmith. Goodness gracious. Jesse, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing this. Honored. My God, that's a list of artists. I want to just go back to the very beginning with your first gig and what got you into this.
So what got me into this was honestly my father. My father, Harry Sandler, was a tour manager back in the days, and he's the reason why I'm here, honestly. Growing up, I never really considered what he did as a job. It was just something my dad did, right? I never even thought about it as a career, honestly. We sort of rekindled our relationship because we hadn't always had the best. And after a while, we got back together and sort of, he offered me a job. And I think he was trying to, make up, so to speak, for maybe not being the best father to me that he could have been. But
was he gone a lot?
He was gone for sure. And, him and my mom split up. And, I think, life just sometimes takes you in weird directions, and it is what it is. But, we got back together and, he offered me a job. He worked for John Mellencamp at the time.
Wow.
He was like, hey, you want to come out on tour? And I was like, sure. Like, I had no idea. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. I did a show with them in New York as a runner.
Okay.
At the time I was living in New York, and they were doing a week of promo shows, and I came out. I mean, I loved it. It was like, the most awesome job.
How old were you?
24.
Okay.
So late. Like I didn't start in this industry young at all. So I did that. And then he asked me if I wanted to go on tour, and I was like, sure, no problem. I really wasn't doing much with my life at the time. So I sort of needed somewhere to go. And that was what started off the thing. And I went on tour. I was the production assistant back then is what they called it. I basically was like a glorified runner is what I tell people, because I really didn't do much. Like, I didn't advance hotels or flights. I was just lucky to be there, I guess.
But you don't usually hear that. I mean, like with a dad tour manager and a son that's like not that interested, not really thinking about it. It's either like, definitely don't want that life, or how do I get in there? You're like, sure. Yeah.
Well, I think back then for me, it wasn't, again, we talk about people don't really understand it and don't know what it is. And, I used to go on tour with him when I was a kid, like 8, 9, 10, I would be hanging out with him on the road a lot, but just never thought of it as something I wanted to do. Like, I didn't even know what people really did on the road. I was just hanging out with my father. Right. And so I did the tour. I did a good job. I made passes. I took things there. I did this. I just did what I was told. Right. I really didn't have like a set job other than maybe putting up signs and very menial labor.
It's the way to learn.
But it was great. I loved it. And I was in. I was hooked.
Yeah, man.
And then after that, the production manager for Mellencamp, a gentleman by the name of Kevin Holman. He also was the monitor engineer for Mellencamp and the production manager. So he did both gigs.
Got it.
And he really liked me. We got along really great. And he said, hey, I want to take you on Bon Jovi as an audio tech.
Did you have audio experience?
No, I barely had any experience. And he just said, I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to call Claire Brothers. You're going to come out on the road.
Wow.
And I was like, great, whatever. Didn't ask any questions, didn't care. And so next year, I'm on a plane headed to Europe as an audio tech for Claire Brothers. No experience. I went to a few shows in New York during the summer because in New York, they used to do a lot of summer radio shows. And that was basically my training. Okay. It's not like now where you have to go to class and you have to like learn something. It was just, I was there. I saw what people were doing.
Wow. And
I was on a plane to Europe and I was like the last guy on the audio crew and I was hanging PA. And, you know, I ended up being pretty good at it, I think, just because of who I was. And, you know, I paid attention.
Yeah.
And I just said, you know, I don't need to know how everything works. I just need to know how to do my job. You know, I just need to know how to put a PA together. I just need to know how to plug it in on both sides. And I didn't care about how it worked necessarily internally. And that got me through because I was just very focused on what does it take and how can I do it the best.
That is just great advice because I'm sure your superiors are like, hey, if he's just doing the job.
Yeah.
So they really didn't care much of technical skills. This is what we're talking about at the conference about is what is that attitude that you feel like they were like, hey, I know you know nothing about audio, but let's bring you out. Like, were you curious? You were excited to learn? Like, what do you think they...
I mean, none of that. Basically, Rocky just liked me. Rocky was Kevin's nickname. Basically, he just liked me. And, you know, probably because I was my, you know, father's son and him and my dad had worked together for many years. He just wanted to take me out and he just literally told Claire Brothers, I'm bringing him with me. And that was it. And
wow.
I mean, I never really asked a lot of questions. Like my learning style wasn't to ask a lot of questions, which, you know, doesn't work for a lot of people. I just sort of always paid attention and listened and I kind of just figured it out that way. And you know, I worked for Claire Brothers after that for, I'd say, about 2 years. I'd say I was a pretty good audio tech just off of sheer will, you know, not really like education or anything else. And it was good, though, because it gave me, you know, perspective of being part of the crew, you know, loading in, doing the hard stuff that, you know, sometimes when you're a production manager or you work, you know, in the office or you have different, you know, you're not always in tune with what's going on. Totally. You know, out on the floor, so to speak. So I loved it. Like it was a great experience. And again, not to say it was sheer luck, but like literally right place, right time.
Well, and you have to bring a certain vibe to actually for people to want to bring you around people. So that's
absolutely.
We just keep talking about, technical skill or attitude. And it seems like you had attitude.
Absolutely. I was just very focused and, you know, if something about me, it just clicked.
So 2 years with Claire.
2 years with Claire. In that time, I had also gone back to John Mellencamp. Actually, after that first Mellencamp tour, I learned a lot. And I actually came back to the Mellencamp tour the second year doing more stuff on my own. Like I had learned how to advance hotels. I had learned, you know, how to do the flights. And so when I came back that second year, I was much more skilled and understanding. And so that was like another level of growth for me. And so I did that Mellencamp tour. And then after the Mellencamp tour, Bon Jovi and Mellencamp had a lot of like people who worked for both camps. And because I worked for Bon Jovi as the audio tech and I was on Mellencamp as the production assistant coordinator, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people saw me in different roles. And so I ended up finding out that the production assistant that did Bon Jovi the year I was an audio tech was leaving. And so I didn't really know the production manager very well. I don't go in the production office and hang out, right? Like as the last audio tech back in the days, you know, I would never talk to the production manager. It just wasn't a thing, right? Not because of anything other than just, you know, I didn't really know anybody. And I was always very introverted. So I just kind of kept to myself, and sometimes being known and being seen is not always the best because, you know, sometimes it could be for the wrong reason. So
do you feel like back then with like the ranks, was it less likely to,
absolutely. You know, I mean, I don't even know if I was introduced to the production manager, honestly, but it was fine. Like, it's no big deal. Like, I'm not hurt about it. And so I found out that person was leaving, and I called up someone else who I knew. His name was Mike Faris, and he worked for both Mellencamp as Bon Jovi. He was the head rigger. And I said, hey, I heard so-and-so's leaving. I want the job. Can you talk to Bugsy about it? Because Mike knew me better than Bugsy from both camps.
Cool.
Yeah, so he spoke to Bugsy, and Bugsy called me, and he gave me the job, and I became Bon Jovi's production coordinator.
Okay.
And that was in 2002, I think. And yeah, I mean, from that point, I called up Claire. Always a funny story. I called up Claire and I said, hey, I got this opportunity to work with, Bon Jovi in production. If I don't take this, I'll probably regret it.
Yeah.
I literally said it, for the rest of my life. And I said, so, I'm out.
See ya.
And so, yeah. And honestly, it was literally the best decision in my entire life.
Well, dang. So in that, are you touring the world as PC then?
At that point, the only tour that I had done internationally was the Bon Jovi tour.
Yeah.
And that was, like a 2-month tour in Europe.
Got it.
I hadn't really gone to overseas because most of the tours that I had done and most of the Claire stuff I had done was in America. But yeah, after I signed on with Bon Jovi, I mean, we did world tours and that went on for many years, working for Bon Jovi, and then working with Prince, I did through Bugsy because he was the production manager, and he always brought all of his people with him, and so I did that with him
as production coordinator.
So I was kind of like the
right hand,
his right hand for 10 or so years.
Can you talk a little bit about, because we've talked about production assistant and the role that they play with tour managers, but how is that different? And each camp is different, but how is it different for you working directly under the production manager? What were you doing?
As his production coordinator, I mean, I did a lot. And not because, he made me do a lot. I did a lot because I was very focused and I wanted it, right? Like, I knew this is what I want to do. And I was very passionate. And I just wanted to do everything. Like, literally, I would try to do like the best spreadsheets. I would try to do like the best day sheets. I would sit in my room for hours and try to like figure stuff out, just because to me, it was like, this is it. This is my passion. And I want to do it as best I can. And I would see, things that go on in the office, and I would listen. And again, I didn't ask a lot of questions, but we used to sit in the office. Me, Bugsy, and Mike would sit like at one table that was made up of like 2 or 3 tables. So I would hear everything they were talking about. I would, hear everything they were talking about with other people. Yeah. And to be honest, like, those times for me were amazing. Like, I was a sponge. Like, and not only that, but like, those 2 people in my life were paramount. Like, I learned so much from Bugsy. Legends. I learned so much from Mike, and I learned different things, right? Like, it wasn't a case where, they both sort of did the same thing. They both complemented themselves. Like, Mike was very technically orientated. Like, he did all the drawings, he did the truck packs, he did the sea contained. Like, he was the operations manager, is what we referred to him as. Bugsy was, the big picture, the production guy. He had all the answers. Like, he wasn't always necessarily like the smartest person in the room, but he could read a room. He always knew what to say. He always pulled the answer out of a hat when nobody knew. He was just like that type of human. Cool. But he wasn't necessarily like, he didn't draw, and he wasn't like as technically proficient maybe as Mike was. But I learned so much from the 2 of them, like, interacting. Even when they didn't necessarily agree, it was just sort of comedic to me that these 2 guys are working together and they're disagreeing, and, how do you like figure that out? But they both trusted each other. Like, if Mike said, this is what we're doing, it was usually, this is what we're doing, right? Like, Bugsy knew that Mike was his guy, right? And Mike was and it just was a great relationship. And I think a lot of my relationships, I emulate those 2 because it works so well.
Who was taking care of the crew? Were they both, or was one?
I mean, I really took care of the crew mostly in terms of, and I wouldn't say I took care of them like maybe in the way we look at it, care today. I didn't even, nobody talked about that stuff. And this was early 2000s, right? I mean, it was still,
Totally.
I guess, far from where we are today. I did their flights, did their hotels, communicated, just all the things that production coordinators do.
Yeah.
And I would say I took care of them in ways where my personality maybe was just more welcoming, or, we would always tell jokes and always just try to keep it so light, which was also another great thing about it, because we just had so much fun. It didn't even seem like a job, honestly. Like, we were traveling around the world. We had worked together, like the same core group, for maybe like 10 years. I don't want to say it was a family per se, because sometimes that's,
I know.
we weren't family, but it was like the closest thing that I had ever had to, like a true bond with people that you're doing hard stuff with over the course of, 10 years. And
wow.
I loved every minute of it. I mean, it really like shaped my entire view of what touring should be, how it should be, and how you deal with people.
Did you have a moment in those 10 years where you empathize with your dad of like, oh my God, this was his life? Or did you have a moment? Was he so proud of the work that you were doing?
He was definitely proud. I mean, many people have told me, oh, your dad may not say it, but, he's so proud of you and, everything you've accomplished. And, he passed away in 2017, my dad. And I will say that I don't think we ever really like finalized in some respects, our relationship. I think we both loved each other.
Yeah.
And, what he gave me was, amazing, because honestly, I wouldn't probably even be here without him.
Wow.
Right. And so I think, I don't think we ever reconciled our relationship 100%, but at the end of the day, I'm here because of him, and the rest is what it is. Sometimes it's too late, but you move forward, right, in a different way. You try to maybe do the things that you couldn't do for yourself.
Oof.
So,
man,
I know it's a little emotional talking about it, because I don't often talk about my dad.
Yeah, thank you.
And I honestly, when I rarely talked about my dad when I was growing up, because it was always uncomfortable. It was like, what's your dad do? Oh, well, I don't want to talk about it. And so even that reconnecting with my dad wasn't even me. It was when I was in college, I was dating someone and they were like, what's up with your dad? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, where's your dad? Because we had never even spoken about my dad that much in, my life, because it was such a separate life that we both led. And she was like, oh no, that's bullshit. Like, you need to reach out to your dad, what? So that's how I ended up even calling up and talking to my dad again, was through that person.
Thanks to that girl. Okay.
Thanks to her.
Yeah.
And once again, it's like, I was just very lucky in life to just
totally
have people there for me that, I needed and didn't even really know I needed and didn't know where it was going to take me.
Well, clearly this was your path.
And now I'm, sitting here talking to you, and I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about my life and where I came from and the things that I do now, which, I had no idea I could do any of this stuff. I mean, who grows up thinking you're going to go on tour, you're going to work for Bon Jovi, Nickelback, you're going to do all these things, you're going to be in charge of, all of these things. And you're like, what do you mean? Like, that's crazy. So
let's get into it. Thank you so much for sharing that. So you go from Bon Jovi, PC for 10 years.
Yep.
When do you make that leap to production manager?
So while I worked for Bon Jovi, I had been doing some other gigs with my dad as like a production, I call it production manager, but I did a few like Dancing with the Stars tour.
Let's go.
When they first started touring after the TV show started. I think I did like 5 or 6 tours with them, and I was the production manager.
Yes.
And my dad used to do a bunch of Don Henley solo stuff when he worked for the Eagles. And so I kind of became like Don Henley's production manager.
I just saw that at the Sphere. So I'm like still...
and all of that was kind of happening in the background as I was still, being Bugsy's production coordinator. And Bon Jovi, I think 2010, everybody kind of realized that I was outgrowing, my assistant position. So we came up with the idea for the 2011 tour that I would be the production manager day to day, and Bugsy was going to be more of like the production director. So he would be above me and, however that works, And so the tour, we started rehearsals. Unfortunately, Bugsy had some health issues that came up and we were in Tacoma rehearsing and he got a call from his doctor and his doctor, was like, you got to come back home immediately. Like, we got to talk about some stuff.
Oh no.
And so he went home and he basically had to step away from the tour.
Wow.
And so literally
right after you were promoted to that role.
Wow. So literally, from one day to the next, he called me and was like, okay, I can't do the tour. Basically, you're in charge now. So like, I literally became the production manager, like as the real production manager. And I will be honest, like I was freaking out a little because I knew with his support and him being involved that it was a different mindset. But now I'm basically in charge and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I knew I could do the gig. And to be honest, I had that support structure around me of all the people who had been there for all those years. So I knew enough to know that I can lean on them. They know what they're doing. They will support me. So it wasn't complete chaos, but it was definitely not what I had expected.
And it was filling some big shoes too.
And it was, oh my God, like filling shoes that couldn't even be, you can't fill someone's shoes like that. It's two different things, but I just basically did everything he did. I tried to keep it the same, and not change anything because nothing needed to be changed. And I sort of just eased my way through it. And, I think I did a good job. The tour was successful. We went around the world and it was a great experience because even with him being there, I think it would have been a different experience for me in terms of not really, taking the next step, but not being able to like really take the steps.
This episode is brought to you by Gigs, the professional career platform for the live event industry. So if you're looking for jobs in the live event space, or if you are hiring in this industry, go to gigs.live, become a professional, become an employer, start posting jobs and applying to jobs now. Join our community of tens of thousands of professionals in this industry. We have events around the country. We have employment opportunities. We have entertainment. We have education. So join Gigs today, gigs.live. Also, please go give us a 5-star review and follow us on our socials at gigs.live. Two things about you that I'm hearing is, one, you weren't right off the bat like, I really want to move up. I need this job. You were, it was seen in you like, okay, you have leadership. Now let's put you here. That was one. And then number two is, once you got the power, you weren't here to change everything.
No.
You wanted to keep it and that's really admirable.
Absolutely. And to me, it was it was slow, right? I was with him for 10 years and, I wasn't looking to be the production manager. I was just looking to do as much as I could. While I worked for Bon Jovi, I also I did ticketing.
Nice.
And I wouldn't say I was like the best ticketing person, but I was organized enough. So I was doing ticketing at one time. I was doing the production budgets. So I started working with the tour accountant and working with him on the production budgets, which was amazing because then I didn't know anything about tour budgets in terms of like big picture. So then I started working on that and I was still sort of working in production, but we hired a production assistant who like did the day-to-day stuff, but I was still in charge of the big picture stuff. So, overall, Bon Jovi was like the tour that definitely made me who I am today. Without that tour, I would not be who I was. So,
and the mentorship.
And, I also, didn't mention that, the tour manager, John's manager was Paul Korzelius. Paul was definitely influential in my life. He was like the third person of the Bugsy, the Freeze, because Paul was definitely different than them too. Like he had a very different perspective and he taught me so much about so many things that, and I've never actually said to these guys, like, you guys taught me all that, I think it was just, mentorship, but not in the way where it's like directly being done, and I am forever grateful, for all.
What was one big takeaway from the tour manager?
I thought Paul was a great motivator. He came from a sports football background and I think he brought a lot of like sports mentality to it. He would definitely get like under your skin, and he would definitely like push you, you know, to get stuff done. And I need you to do this, and I want you to do that. And I think at the end of the day, it wasn't just, you know, someone making you do a bunch of stuff. Like, I think it was definitely, there was some underlying, like, you're going to do all this stuff because the more you do and the more you get pushed to do it, the more you're going to figure stuff out. You know, the more you're going to learn, similar to like, you know, your coach pushing you to do better, you know, and keep going. And I think that was his mentality, which was very different from anybody else's. And honestly, like, he was probably one of the most unique people that I think I've ever worked for in this industry. And you know, looking back, you know, you kind of hated him because he made, you know, it was just constant.
Yeah.
But, you know, now that I look back on it, you know, I feel like there was a purpose that went unsaid, right? You know, He didn't tell you why, but I think he knew, like, this guy's got potential. So I'm going to.
3 very different leadership styles.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What did you want to become when you stepped in this role and moved on from Bon Jovi? Like, what did you want to be?
I mean, I definitely wanted to take everything that I had learned and bring it with me, you know, because I felt like it really worked. Like, I think Bon Jovi, to me, was, you know, for the 10, 15 years that I was there, I mean, I thought it was one of the best run tours, you know, and I think a lot of people who did those tours would, you know, say the same thing. You know, it was a core team of people, very well run, very well organized. You know, there wasn't a lot of chaos inside the tour. I wouldn't say maybe we could have done things better, you know, but there was definitely a motivation that everybody made it feel like, you know, it's a family. You know, we're all there for each other, and we're all like putting in this work for the greater good, you know, no matter how hard it was, you know, no matter whether you were staying up overnight or you had to sleep at the venue because, you know, things just had to get done. It never seemed like a job.
Wow.
It just seemed like, this is awesome, right? We're doing this stuff. It's hard work, but everybody's having a good time, and we're not taking it too seriously.
That is how you know you're also meant to be out there, as if it just is not feeling like work.
Yeah.
So you go from Bon Jovi. What's the next gig after that?
Well, during Bon Jovi, Nickelback called me. They wanted to hire me as their production manager.
What era is this?
This was about 2011. So this was like right after the first tour that I was the production manager. They were going out in 2012, I believe. And so they called
This is Nickelback era.
This is like, man. This is them at their, you know, the height. And they had opened up for Bon Jovi the previous tour. When before the 2011 one that I did, the previous tour, they had done some dates with us, and when Bugsy was the production manager. But I distinctly remember the manager called me and was like, hey, we'd like to hire you as a production manager. And basically what he told me is, you know, the band, after doing the Bon Jovi support slot, was like, whatever Bon Jovi's doing, we want to do, because they really like appreciated the whole way that we ran the show. And so basically he said, if you're Bon Jovi's production manager, we want you to be our production manager. Oh. And so started working for Nickelback, and that was in 2011, end of 2011. And I still work for them to this day.
Oh my gosh.
Even when I couldn't do the tours that they were doing, because I was working for Phish. Yeah. Which is another chapter, but you know, they still kept me on. I still worked in the background. You know, I still did budgets. I still did invoicing. I basically was keeping all that stuff together because, you know, they appreciated how I worked, and the manager was like, no, we want you to stay on and continue to do this stuff. Wow. Because, you know, I mean, I just made life easy. Right. So they recognized that. So that was good for me.
If you were doing a lot of tasks that just made their lives easier, did you ever feel like, oh, this is too much? Or did it feel like, no, this is what I'm supposed to do?
Never. I mean, one year I was working for Phish, Bon Jovi, and Nickelback. Dude. Because the Phish schedule and the Bon Jovi schedule worked out where I could actually be on both tours. And I was actually doing the background stuff for Nickelback. So like literally for 5 or 6 months, I was working for Phish, working for Bon Jovi. Dude. And working for Nickelback. And to be honest, I don't think I could do that now, but that was like sort of like my prime working years.
Yes.
And it just felt like normal.
You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do.
Which is even crazy to say thinking about it now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you with Phish in 2019 or 2018?
Yeah, I worked for Phish from 2015 until New Year's Eve of 24. So I worked for them 10 years.
That was like one of my first running gigs was in Nashville.
Oh, really?
Ascend for 2 nights show.
Yeah.
So maybe we crossed paths at some point.
we were definitely in the same building.
So cool. Okay, so as a production manager, and you got to have amazing teachers and coaches through this.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part of the production management job itself?
I just felt like it spoke to me and I was able to be the best version of myself. It just fit. Like, I guess I would say I'm sort of like a internal control freak and I like to know what's going on. Like I probably wouldn't function very well if I was like at the end of an information chain as opposed. And so I just felt like my skills and my demeanor and how I did things just worked well for the job.
Yeah.
I mean, I just felt like it fit my personality. That was the biggest thing for me. I mean, I love, solving problems. I love figuring stuff out. I love working with people. I love everything about the actual job, but I just felt for me, it was like comfortable for some odd reason.
You seem very calm and collected.
Yeah.
Have you ever lost your shit on the job?
I would say, yeah, very rarely.
Okay.
I think I could probably count on maybe one hand or two hands how many times like I literally like threw something and cursed. But I mean, very rarely. That just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
Like I just never thought that behavior solved any problems or made anything better, right? Like if something's wrong as a leader, and I probably didn't have this mindset back then in terms of like actually thinking about it. But, I think as a leader, your reaction dictates everybody else's reaction. And if you're calm and you're just like, hey, we'll figure it out, or, that trickles down, right? And I think that's very important for people to know is, you set the tone, whether you recognize it or not. The way you behave is the way other people, tend to behave too in some respects.
What's acceptable.
Yeah, what's acceptable. I mean, I've definitely, stuff's happened and I've thrown my radio and I've but it wasn't really because of how it happened per se. It was more like just a way to get out like that initial, I'm so pissed off and I need to just do something to like get the negative energy. I mean, I wouldn't say throwing my radio is good, but I threw it like in a direction where I knew there was nobody standing, like nobody was hurt. But
what's the type of thing that would get you frustrated?
We had a show one time and we were loading out and someone was doing something and like, some truss got bent, right? Something happened, someone wasn't paying attention.
Got it.
Something like that, or we were loading in and somebody completely did something totally wrong that they shouldn't have. And, and I wouldn't even say these are like big things, but in the context of like more common sense and like, I can't believe like the simplest thing just can't happen right. Like, the simplest thing. And so there was probably more context to these things, like, but that's, that was just like my release.
Yeah.
And most times I wouldn't do it probably in public, but it just, the context of what was going on just made me so mad that I had to.
Well, I'm just wondering what ticks you because you seem so calm. And,
I mean, not much. Yeah. I mean, listen, I've had artists trapped on risers that are flying. And I truly believe that being mad or being like aggressive towards people or getting upset never solves the problem, because you don't talk to people who are trying to fix the problem about the problem, right? Because that only, what's the point of that, right? You let people try to do their job. You let people fix it. You don't get in their face, and then at a certain point you step in and go, okay, what are we doing here? Like, can we fix the problem? If we can't fix the problem, then okay, I have to make a decision where, okay, we're going to just leave this person stranded there until we can get them down, or you're going to tell me what we can do and we're going to make a decision, right? It's just this mutual respect of not every problem is someone's fault. Just because you're in charge of the problem doesn't mean you created it.
You got to fix it.
But you got to fix it. And I think some people may go, oh, well, you're supposed to like be mad and you're supposed to, tell. And I'm like, no, I mean, it's, unless someone's like literally about to die or there's a catastrophic event going on, like there's no reason.
What is, and I don't mean to go negative. I was just curious. But what
you gotta go negative.
What is something that you what is something that you are really proud of in your career looking back?
In my younger days, I think I'm just proud of the work I've done. I think I'm proud of being a self-made person, and coming basically from what I amount is, nothing to being someone that, I guess is respected and I don't necessarily think about that every day, but deep down, it makes, it makes me feel good that I've made something with my life and, I've done it pretty well, I think.
Heck yeah.
And more recently, I think I'm more proud of just, the work that we're doing here with Lititz and coming to the conference and sort of growing into doing more mentorship and just trying to help people, which is something that I never really honestly thought of. Like, wow. I just did my job, right? And that was like what I did. And shout outs to Andrea, because 3 years ago, she was like, you need to come to the conference. And I was like, I don't go to conferences. Like, I don't learn anything. Like, they're not talking about anything I care about. And she was like, no, you really should come. And so I showed up 3 years ago. And I literally, I even said this on the thing I did last year when I spoke on the stage with Marty. I said, it really changed my perception. And I do believe it did change my professional life too, in some respects, because it's really great to mentor people. It's really great to show people the way. And it's really actually more important to see people succeed. I've had people come out to rehearsals and come out to shows and, these people are touring and I don't take credit for oh, I did that but it just makes me feel good that, I played a small part in them getting their first tour or them saying, I really enjoyed that. I didn't know I wanted to tour, but after coming to MSG with you or being at the rehearsals, it made me feel that I could do this. And there's so many people that I'm so proud of too, for doing that. You know what I mean? And that's sort of my thing is I just want to tell people that you can do whatever you want. And it really doesn't take much effort, but you just need someone to help you, along the way.
So what advice would you give if you were this sponge and that's how you learn? How would you, if you were mentoring someone, or let's say someone was under your wing at a show, what advice would you have for that person? I
mean, I would definitely tell them that they should go for what they want. Definitely should reach for your dreams. I don't think the way I did it was the best way for most people. I was lucky enough to be in the position to sort of be introverted and not, be very outward about what I wanted. But definitely, when you meet people, introduce yourself, tell them what you want to do, tell them you're looking for a gig. And I think, that goes very far in letting people know what you want, because a lot of times people will respond and go, hey, I'm doing this, and I mean, I've literally seen it happen all the time.
Yeah.
And whether the person gets the job or not, it's proof positive that being open and being truthful and not being afraid to talk to people who you may consider oh, I can't talk to that person. Who am I, right?
Right.
Be confident, and that'll take you anywhere you want to go. And have a good attitude, because I always say I'd rather hire someone that can do the job that has a better attitude than someone who may have some experience but doesn't have a good attitude.
And attitude meaning positive?
Meaning they show up, they want to work, they want to do whatever you ask them to do. There's no, I don't want to do that, or I'm not here for that, or I'm better than, just show up and be ready, because right place, right time. I mean, that's more to it than anything else.
They'll just say, hey, I'm telling Claire, I'm taking you with me.
I mean, it proof positive, right?
Cool.
That just you meet someone introduces you to someone else. Because of that introduction, the person that takes you more seriously, because, oh, well, that person introduced me to this person. So that's like a cosign, right? And so keep doing that. Keep meeting people, keep talking to people, and don't stop until, you get what you want. And I also do think mentorship is very important. You should find a mentor. Yep. You should find someone you can call, because, you do need help navigating. But the rest of it, I think, works itself out if the person's supposed to be there. You know what I mean?
How can people potentially get in touch with you if you want to share that?
I mean, come up to me in public.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know someone who knows me,
great.
I mean, it's all
good stuff.
It's all good.
Thank you so much for
You're
doing
welcome.
this.
Thank you.
Wonderful to know you now.
Thank you.